Hello from my porch in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm enjoying a little spring air today. I'm Carol Anderson, principal coach of the Utah Opera. I want to introduce my colleague, Dr. Taylor Burkhardt. She's a member of the Resident Artist Program for Utah Opera, and she will be presenting tonight's lecture on Così, tutte. Take it away, Taylor.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Carol. So today I'm going to be talking about Così fan tutte, ossia la scuola degli amanti, which just means they're all like that, or the school for lovers. This opera was a collaboration between Mozart and the librettist Lorenzo da Ponte, whose name you might recognize from some other really great collaborations with Mozart, including Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni. So really successful pairing here. This opera premiered in 1790 in Vienna, Austria, but it wasn't performed at the Met until about 1922, so only 100 years ago. One of the big reasons for this was that while the Viennese did not find this opera offensive, the Victorians really did. So in the 19th century, if this was ever performed, it was heavily censored, so that the women wouldn't faint at the vulgarity of it all. So it was eventually revived, obviously, and very glad it was because it's a super fun opera. I'm going to do a quick recap of the beginning of this story, if you're not familiar already. So these two men, Ferrando and Guglielmo, are hanging out with their older friend, Don Alfonso. And the Guglielmo and Ferrando are dating these two sisters. They're actually engaged to these two sisters. Guglielmo is with Fiordiligi, and Ferrando is with Dorabella. And they're talking about how much they love their fiancés and how faithful their fiancés are to them. And Don Alfonso listens to this and goes, "Psh, no. They're fickle, just like all other women." So talk about a guy who's probably been burned once or twice in his life. And he puts down a bet with these two guys. He says, "I bet that I can get your women to be unfaithful to you by the end of the day." And the men go, "Deal. Of course they will be faithful to us." And I feel like this is partially out of some manly pride happening here because this is a crazy thing to do to your fiancés. So they decide to pretend, they hatch a plan, they decide to pretend like they're going off to war because these two men are officers in the army. And they go to break the news to their fiancés, and the fiancés are understandably upset but supportive, right? Their man's going off to war. So they sing this really beautiful trio, Dorabella, Fiordiligi, and Don Alfonso, wishing these men safe travels. The text literally says that they hope the wind is sweet, that the waves are tranquil, and that every element responds to their desires. It sounds very much like just a traditional blessing. I really love this ensemble. I think it's an example of some really great Mozart textures and part writing, and also some really beautiful woodwind writing. So one of the major features is this undulation in the strings that's supposed to sound like the waves. Here's a little bit of that. And that continues underneath for the entire thing, so the waves of the sea. There's also, of course, this really beautiful, very simple sounding part writing that makes it sound really convincing as just, a very typical blessing, maybe in a Christian church or something. So these thirds and sixths, it's very sweet, dolcissimo, right? Something though that makes me laugh in this trio is there's this point, Don Alfonso has this line where, just listen to it, women's. And really, maybe upon first hearing, it just sounds like a beautiful line, a beautiful piece of part writing. But the thing that makes me think that it's a little, either Don Alfonso is working a little too hard to sound sincere, or maybe he's laughing at them. We get these really crunchy half steps And to me, it sounds like he's laughing at them. So be on the lookout for that line. And as I said, there's a lot of really beautiful woodwind lines in this and throughout the opera. It's just doubling the vocal parts, so you might miss it. But there's this clarinet and bassoon duet that happens. And you'll continue to hear this bassoon doubling Don Alfonso. But Mozart, here's a little instrumental nerd for you. Mozart was an incredible writer for woodwinds. Another great instrumental piece to check out might be his quintet for woodwinds and piano, for winds and piano. Just a lot of these really gorgeous part writing textures that he uses for woodwinds. So, skipping ahead a little bit. So, these men, right, have pretended to go off to war, but what they do actually is they pretend to be these Albanians and try to seduce each other's fiancés. So that's what they do. I guess the Albanian disguise, it's a lot of times they use this huge mustache, and I guess that partial obscurement of their face is enough to convince their fiancés that they're entirely different people. So they pull all these shenanigans in Act 1, and one of the big plot points is that they pretend that they're poisoned to gain sympathy from the girls, and yeah, the Act 1 finale is crazy, so look forward to that. There's also, so at the beginning of Act 2, we see that the girls are maybe kind of curious about these Albanians. Their boyfriend's been gone for half a day, so they're pretty bored. And they also, feel a little bad for them. They've been poisoned after all. So they decide to, do what was then the kind of thing, the hanging out. And they go on a walk, right? So conveniently, though, they get split up so that Guglielmo goes with Ferrando's fiancée, Dorabella, and Ferrando takes Guglielmo's fiancée, Fiordaligi. And let's focus in on Guglielmo and Dorabella for a moment, shall we? So on their walk, Guglielmo starts really trying to flirt with Dorabella, really win her over. And they have this really fun, flirty duet. And one thing to notice, the differences between Dorabella and Fiordaligi. Dorabella is really flighty, tempestuous type of character. They're kind of unfair stereotypes. And Fiordaligi, she sings come scoglio, like a rock. Like, I will never betray Guglielmo, no matter how hard these Albanians try. And so, but Guglielmo and Dorabella, they have their duet is so cute and flirty. And we get these short phrases at the beginning. So that's Guglielmo singing. I mean, I put an octave up, right? But you notice these short fermatas, and to me that really adds to the flirty element where he pauses, just for a little dramatic effect, but in a cute kind of way. So what he's saying right there is, I gave you my heart. So he's given her this heart-shaped locket that he wants her to take. And he then asks for her heart. And then she responds in kind. She has a very similar melody. She imitates him, which I think is important. And she says, oh, I would give you my heart, but it's gone already. And then we get this really cute device that Mozart uses all the time when he wants to indicate someone's little heart is beating, a little fluttering. We get these little staccato. It says, perché pote and we hear that this motive throughout their duet. So that's them singing separately. First he goes, perché batte, batte, batte qui. She sings, che mai bazza, bazza, bazza lì. Then they sing in harmony. They've maybe made it 30 seconds into this duet, and they're already shamelessly singing in harmony. So if you haven't picked up on this already, whenever two singers are singing in harmony, that usually means they're on the same page. And a lot of times that means they're on the same page romantically. So they have this together. Then Guglielmo tries to push it a step further and says, oh, you should put this heart locket around your neck. Well, that's where Dorabella wears her portrait of Ferrando. And so he knows that the real kicker, the real final step in winning Dorabella over is if he can convince her to get rid of her portrait of her fiancé. Well, she does. She gives in to that. And while he's really working on it, though, we get this is another Mozart tactic, is to use forte piano or mezzo forte piano to really drive in the point, really drive in the point. And notice he does it 4 times. So Guglielmo's really working hard to get Dorabella to give in here. And then we get this pattern. And this really quick pattern continues. So here Dorabella is singing about, she says, oh, I feel Vesuvius in my chest, like the volcano. So she just feels this really huge outpouring of passion and emotion. She's really kind of getting a little hot and bothered here for Guglielmo. And Guglielmo actually sings Ferrando Meschino. Like, sorry, Ferrando, I feel very bad for you right now. So even in this moment, when he's trying to seduce Ferrando's girl, he feels pretty bad about it. So they continue their duet in a lot of harmony. And again, it's all just very fun and light. So this is to contrast with Ferrando and Fiordiligi. So Ferrando and Fiordiligi come back from their walk. Fiordiligi's hopping mad because Ferrando has kind of tried to pull the same move on her that Guglielmo did to Dorabella, and Fiordiligi is having none of it. So she and Dorabella leave, and Ferrando and Guglielmo kind of confer, and Ferrando goes, Guglielmo, you're going to be so happy. Your fiancé is so steadfast. She didn't give in to me even a little bit. And Guglielmo goes, so about Dorabella. And, explains to him a little what happened. He shows him the portrait that Dorabella gave him of Ferrando. And Ferrando's naturally very upset. Guglielmo sings this very fun aria, Donne Mie. Where, again, it's really fun, but it's also maybe enforcing some unfair gender stereotypes. And Ferrando's still very sad. Don Alfonso comes up, though, and reminds them, hey, we still have till the end of the day, so don't worry, maybe Fiordiligi will be just as unfaithful. And cut back to the girls. Dorabella is telling all about, her experience with Guglielmo. And Fiordiligi says, even if maybe I have feelings for this guy, this Albanian, I would never give in to him. And this is a little bit of a surprise, right? That maybe Fiordiligi is trying really hard to resist this guy. So Dorabella leaves, and she decides that she's going to dig out Ferrando and Guglielmo's army uniforms that are somehow in their house, and they're going to dress up and go off to war. They're going to pretend to be men and join their fiancés on the battlefield. It's this very heroic romantic idea that Fiordiligi has. And so she starts singing about it. Little does she know that Ferrando was watching. So we get these very sharp rhythms, very noble. Yeah, so this very, sounds really noble, really romantic. So she starts singing about how happy she is going to be when she's reunited with her love, and then Ferrando bursts into the room. So she has this really bouncy, major accompaniment. I'm a little too bouncy. Then Ferrando comes in. Ooh, we're in minor now. Because he's singing about how he will just die if Fiordiligi isn't with him. Fiordiligi responds very dramatically, in a very Fiordiligi kind of way. She says, "Cosa vengo?" And then we get this really interesting accompaniment pattern. Very agitated. She's angry, right, at Ferrando for coming in the room, and then Ferrando says, "You know, if you don't love me, you should just stab me with the sword that you're holding," because she's in an army uniform. And she softens a little bit at that, actually, and you can hear it, even if you don't hear it in her text, you can hear it in the orchestra, because all of a sudden we don't have this very agitated rhythm anymore. We have and these long lines. And during this time, they're trading off lines to each other, and very much kind of like their own version of what Dorabella and Guglielmo were doing, right? They had those very short, cute ones, whereas Fiordiligi and Ferrando sound more like what happens. They sing in harmony. And they're singing about how they feel themselves beginning to vacillate from their constancy. And then immediately they try to break apart, and well, he's still working on her, but she says, "Oh no, I can't be that." And of course, though, Ferrando gets this really beautiful arietta in the middle, and this is really the way to win Fiordiligi's heart. It's not, with Dorabella we have a cute, like a little trinket, and just all this very fun, flirty, all these fun flirty tactics. Ferrando, though, goes full heroic and romantic. He matches Fiordiligi's mood at the beginning. Singing about all the romantic things he wants to be to her. Sposo, amante, e più se vuoi. So, husband, lover, and anything more that you want. So, it takes a lot more to win over Fiordiligi than it does Dorabella, but it absolutely works, and she gives in. So I guess the moral of the story is that nobody wins in this opera. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing this really fun Coney Island staging tonight. It's a production I haven't seen before, and I think that it's going to be a really fun way to showcase all the colors and the characters in this really fun opera. So I hope that you're looking as forward to seeing it tonight as I am. Thanks for tuning in.